Oh, hey YouTubers! Yes, this is Jacques Gaines from Jacques Gaines Photography. I'm talking to you, and listen, right now I am actually painting a bedroom. It's my daughter's bedroom, and she wants it painted. So it's drying, and I have plaster to do after. So in between the plaster and the paint, I said I might as well just go on the air and talk to the people out there. So today I'm just going to look at a bit of the image quality of the GFX50S. You guys, this is not an in-depth technical analysis. It's just me looking at shots and sharing my impressions of a couple of shots I took with a model at the ecom place that I work at. But before I start, let me tell you guys that Jacques Gaines Photography is not only about getting the shot, but it's also about the journey getting there. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video. It is so cool, and that's all great. And remember to stay tuned and check out the Fujifilm GFX50S. I did a shoot with Megan and Owen in the streets of Quebec City. It's kind of cool. I'm getting a lot of great feedback on that. I think I'm going to do a lot more of these behind the scenes because they are good. I've been getting into live streams quite a bit lately just because, you know, live streams are out there. They're fun, and they're a lot easier to do than actually editing a video. But I'm going to put the effort into making those videos for sure. And also make sure you check out my video on the GFX50S and how it compares to the Nikon D850, the 5DS, and the A7R Mark III. And what would actually make you go towards the Fujifilm? Because if you actually look at the stats of these cameras, you will probably say, you know what, in terms of specs, I'm going to go for a Nikon, a Canon, or a Sony. And you might not want to buy this Fujifilm, but in this video, I talk about reasons why you would want to do it. Really, why you would go out and do that. So today, I just want to tell you guys that I work at a place, it's an ecom place, and these people, they really work hard at getting a great shot. And a great shot in the sense that, how can I say this? It's a shot, they sell clothing, but they want to make sure that the model looks fantastic. And they've come up with a lighting setup that is absolutely ridiculously amazing. They have the whole back behind me is an actual softbox, a gigantic softbox. I'd say maybe 15 feet wide by 10 feet high. It's just absolutely amazingly gigantic. And on the top, in front of the actual model, there is a softbox. I'd say it's a 5 foot by 4 foot softbox. What they do, their trick is that they make that softbox go on the model, but sort of not straight on the model, sort of off to the side, so it just kisses their face. What it does is that it adds texture to not only the face with highlights and shadows, but also to the clothing itself. So I want to talk a bit about that lighting. Maybe one day I'll go into the details of the lighting with the actual people at Simon's, because there's a guy there, he told me he wants me to interview, so it would be worth definitely showing you guys how they actually shoot. But here's some of the shots, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see it well in here, what is happening and why I find this lighting so good. Now, I didn't want to spoil the fun there. Just, as you can see how friggin' sharp that is, ridiculous. Let me move myself out of the way up here, maybe that's a bit better. Yeah. So as you can see right here, if you look right into this area right here, you will see that there's a bit of shadows being created. And initially, when they started shooting at that place, they didn't have as many shadows, and they said to themselves, you know what, we want to show the clothing, we want to sell the clothing. And what they realized a bit later on is that the difference between shadows and highlights made it so that the actual texture of the clothing came to life, and they actually started welcoming shadows. This was also due to the fact that they also had a very famous e-commerce photographer from New York come in to show them what to do. But it comes down to this, is that every time I go to shoot e-commerce at Simon's, I freak out at the quality of the images we come out with. Some of them are actually editorial worthy. The only difference is that we always have the white background. So for that reason, it can be a tad boring, but the lighting is definitely ideal. So what better place for me to bring the GFX50S and to shoot. Now, I'll show you the settings, also the e-commerce settings they use when we shoot over there. They always use these settings. They use the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV or Mark III. And as you can see in the metadata here, these settings right here are the settings they always use. Even for the EOS Mark IV, Mark III, I decided to use the same settings for my camera, but they are ISO 400, f11, and I have 1/125th of a second. I had no choice because the flash sync on the GFX is only 1/125th of a second. But when we use the Canons, we go for 1/160th of a second. So that is the settings they use in terms of when they shoot with flash and that huge softbox and the whole thing you see here. Now, let's look at this. I just want to go into the image quality and also the lighting. So I guess what we'll talk about today is the lighting and the image quality and what we're getting here. The lens I used for this, I believe it's the 23 to 60, or what is it, 32 to 64. Anyways, it's the zoom lens by Fujifilm, and it's an excellent lens. It's very good quality. Definitely not a fixed focal, but pretty good. Oh, here it is, GF32 to 64 f4. Okay, so I just want to go in here and show you guys a bit of the quality of the lighting we're looking at. Let me get a pose that's nice where I get ample light. Here's a great shot. This is a great shot because I can also show you guys the shadows in this shot as well. Now let's just zoom in here. As you can see, it looks a bit blurry at the beginning because the images are absolutely gigantic. As you can see up here, it says .raf. So this is the actual native raw file by Fuji. Now I focused in on the eye here. Two things I want you guys to know right off the bat. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take a little sip of some coffee, just something. Notice how nice this lighting welcomes shadows and doesn't make this image flat. Look at the highlights. Very important to get the highlights to give the person looking at the photo the same impression a person in real life would get when they look at a person. So we have great highlights here, beautiful catch light in the eye, highlights here, and then over here, shadows, beautiful shadows brought in. That is all lighting. That's all lighting, people. It's really just some nice lighting. And I just wanted to mention that. The lighting is great there. I mean, the model is definitely not a... I'm sorry, everybody. The model is not a sight for sore eyes. I mean, she's a cute model and everything, but when you look at the global shot, what's really nice about this is the shadows being created on the side. I think I'm getting this cough because of the painting I'm doing. So anyways, I'm going to go into develop really quick, and I'm going to show you a bit of dynamic range and sharpness. Let's just move into, I think there was one specific shot I had that really, yes, this shot right here really shows the quality of the sharpness. Now, because we're dealing in 51 megapixels, you can see that that's one of the big advantages of the GFX50S, like all other cameras with 50 megapixels, is that look at the square over here. See the size of that square? I'm just looking at that portion. Oh my God, maybe you guys, I'm gonna die while I'm here. Die on camera, live stream. Too funny. But if you look at the square here, we are just looking at that little portion of the shot, and it is tack sharp. And that's why when Fujifilm decided to announce that they were coming out with the GFX 100, I believe it's going to be the GFX 100S and maybe R later on, I wasn't surprised because I spoke to the people at Fuji and they told me their lenses already had 100 megapixel resolution within them already, the whole GFX line. And you can see it here. You're just not surprised when you look at this image and the sharpness. It's just really, really some sharp stuff. And due to the fact that I'm cropping in on such a small portion of the shot, if I pull out of there, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this image. It's just really, really nice. So I think a couple of other things I can do to show you guys is maybe bring down exposure and bring up exposure. Bring down the highlights here, just so you can see what sort of great image quality information you get when you're working with this camera and this lens system. So I think the two big advantages of the GFX 50 system, or the GFX system, is that, and I've mentioned that in a couple of videos, and I think you will see me mention that in this video right here, is really the lens quality. And also remember that the sensor, because of its size and the size of each individual pixel, you're going to get great dynamic range as well. And you can see it on these images. Now I'm going to go into a couple of other images. This is a great image because the quality of the shot is tack on. I mean, it's right there. And I also, all the exposure aspects to the shot are great. I'm shooting at ISO 400. So here's a couple of other shots I shot. This is a shot of a flower in a field. Now let's go look at some of the data on this just for the hell of it. Now on this one, I'm also shooting at ISO 400. So, but if we go in here, let this load. It's still loading. I mean, there's such gigantic files. When you look at this, let me try. I gotta find the focus area on this. Focus area right there. Sorry about that, guys. If the sound was bad, I'm sorry about that. I actually had my speakers on, so that might be feeding back, but I just shut the speakers off. Actually, that isn't that sharp of a shot right there. Here we go. This is where I got my focus area tack on, and I didn't shake or shiver. On this one, I'm at ISO 400, f4, 1/80th of a second. Probably subject to a bit of shake here, but again, I'm outside taking shots. If I wanted to take this shot and pull, let's say I wanted to pull up the shadows a bit, you can see the information, especially down at the bottom here in this area. You can see it pop up and come out. Highlights as well. If I wanted to bring up the highlights, you can do some crazy ass stuff on your shot. Let's look at some other shots in here. I think I took some shots of my daughter. It was getting very dark outside and she was playing basketball. Might be a better place to show you where I pull some of the information out. We're back in develop. Let's go look at what we shot this at. I'm at ISO 500 f4, 1/250th of a second at sunset. Again, now I wanted to make sure I stopped the motion. That's why I was at 1/250th. I could permit myself to do that with this camera because I know even if I'm underexposed, I can go get some information. Let's pull up the shadows and see what happens. See that information? Now, I'm showing you guys, maybe, you know, I would never do this, what I'm doing right now. I would never do this, what I'm doing right now, but I did want to show you that there's a lot of dynamic range, and you're talking at a high bit depth as well. I believe it's 10 bit. Now, I'm probably mistaken. The technicians out there will get to me on that. If you pull up the highlights, like in the clouds over here, you see that pop out right there. Pull up the shadows. I can go get that information, and I can pull that information down, and it's all there. So, as I said before, great high dynamic range, I think, is one of the great things about the GFX50S system. The lens availability, the lens choice they have, they don't have a lot yet, but they've just introduced a couple of new lenses. But the lens choices they do have, they're all spot on and great choices. My general impressions of the lenses I did have, I had the 45mm fixed focal 2.8, and I always forget the millimeters on this. The 32 to 64 f4. I didn't like the 32 to 64 f4 that much. For what reasons I didn't like it, I don't know. I think maybe it might have been that it wasn't getting me the tack sharpness that I really wanted, especially due to the fact that I actually went out and did a lot of shots with the 45 millimeter first, and then came back to a zoom lens. And this is a rule that I follow all my life. I've always followed, and it's that zoom lenses are just not as sharp as fixed focals. It's just a fact. No matter how good quality or how much you pay for a zoom lens, if you go out and get a fixed focal equivalent, you're going to get a better shot. But suffice to say, the 32 to 64 is great. It takes great shots, as you can see right here. I mean, the lens sharpness, when you get everything and you get the actual exposures right and everything's there, you're going to get a great tack sharp shot. I mean, it's loading, everybody, so don't panic. It doesn't look that bad. Maybe one of the great disadvantages of any large megapixel camera for now is just the actual image load time. If you're used to a 24 megapixel picture and you're actually going through your shots and you're going to clack, 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 you just can't do that with a raw file that's 125 and 115 megabytes. Now, it's one of the disadvantages. If you don't mind that and you want to get your shot, then it's fine. It's okay. I'm just mentioning that if you're someone who likes to take, for example, take a lot of shots in any sort of event where you have a lot of burst happening, well, this isn't a camera for you. First of all, the burst is 3 frames per second. And secondly, when you sit there and you actually pick those pictures out, it's going to be long. It's going to be long. As you can see, if I load this, let's say I load this photo, let's just wait till it loads. And my computer is no slouch, people. It really is no slouch. My job is basically editing videos. So everything about my computer is made to deal with anything audiovisual, and it takes quite a while for the actual lens, the actual images to load. Now, I think the general conclusion for me when I pick up this camera and use it is anyone who wants to get into boutique quality sharpness, you got it here. You got it, and you have it along the likes of all the other guys that are doing medium format. Hasselblad and the others. The quality in the lenses is there, and I believe personally it's the practicality of this camera is a bit better than a lot of the other companies. Now, anyone who owns a Phase 1 is just going to lose it on me, because those Phase 1 owners are just maniacs. They're just maniacs for what they own. But I just wanted to mention that. So that's about all I wanted to talk to you guys today. What is Paul Kutcha saying? Hi, great camera, high dynamic range, Fujifilm, you love. Paul, I love them too. I really do like just the way they approach photography and the whole idea of... I think one of the nice things about Fujifilm is that they... First of all, you just don't buy a camera that you're going to know is going to be outdated. They give you great firmware updates. For my Fujifilm X-T2, it literally made it a new camera. They gave me 120 frames per second slow-mo, F-log, new bracketing functions. Just all of a sudden, my camera became a great camera. So what they say is, listen, you're going to invest in us once. We'll make sure that your investment is worth it, which I've always loved about that company. And the other thing is that the bottleneck of any camera, no matter what it is always the glass. And Fujifilm's glass, even in the cheap stuff, bar none, it's just fantastic glass. It really is fantastic glass. And they also have, it's either fantastic or extraordinary. So they have the 16 millimeter, which is becoming legendary for a lot of people, the fixed focal. I have the 50 to 140, which I absolutely love. The 56 millimeter f1.2, just great lenses. I use the X system most of the time. But suffice to say, let's get back to the GFX. I wanted to tell you guys that the GFX is just a great camera. Gives you some tack sharp, great shots, like the following picture you're looking at right now. And as I said before, if I show you in here, you can see that we're just looking at this little square right here of that image. And that's the type of sharpness you get. So no matter how good your sensor is, if your sensor is 50 megapixels and you're capturing the image from a crappy lens, well, you're just basically going to get a great sensor capture of a crappy image. So the lens decides everything. You guys, I'd like to thank you for watching, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, and do not forget that Jacques Gaines Photography is not only about getting the shot, but it's about the journey getting there. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, and do not forget, everybody, keep on making something from nothing.